3 powerful earthquakes struck 3 different countries across the globe within a span of just 3 days. On Sunday, 17th April 2016, a 5.8 magnitude earthquake hit the Pacific nation of Tonga. The quake occurred on the heels of 2 other major earthquakes just hours earlier. A powerful magnitude 7.8 tremor struck Ecuador on Saturday, killing at least 413 people. A day earlier, a 7.0 magnitude earthquake killed 35 people in Japan's Kyushu Island. The increased frequency of earthquakes has sparked fears of a repeat of last year's Nepal earthquake that killed 8,000 and left 500,000 people homeless. Can the people of this small nation cope with another disaster? April 25th, 2016. Exactly a year after a magnitude 7.8 earthquake shook Nepal to the core. More than 8,500 people perished in the tragedy, while about 500,000 others were left homeless. On a balmy Saturday morning, at a village called Bungamati, about 45 minutes drive from Kathmandu, 58-year-old Baburam Brahmacharya was then doing his usual morning routine while basking in the warmth of the morning sun, when he felt the earth suddenly tremble beneath his feet. Within minutes, chaos, death, and destruction ensued. And Baburam was caught in the midst of it. In Bungamati alone, around 27 people died in the disaster. Hundreds of houses were also destroyed, along with historical monuments dating back to medieval times. The tragedy was a testament to just how fragile life is in the face of Mother Nature's wrath.
This earthquake came after 80 years. The Nepal army, which is supposed to be the initial institution to react into these kind of catastrophe situations, had just one Mi-17 helicopter. But we were fortunate that our immediate neighbors, India and China, were first responders. They set up their largest humanitarian operations internationally, from the Indian Army, from the PLA. We were also fortunate to get immediate support from the US Army. So therefore, in that respect, we were fortunate, and we were also lucky to have the resilience of the Nepali people that took this very unforeseen, sudden situation into their stride.
But 1 year after the tragedy, nothing much has changed. Broken concrete and shattered bricks lay idly everywhere. Foundations ripped apart. Damaged and flimsy buildings, haphazardly supported by wooden planks, dot the ravaged area. Like a house of cards, they could easily fall apart at the slightest movement of the earth. And the condition of the people in the villages looks the same as it was in the immediate aftermath of the earthquake. In Bungamati, reconstruction of the village has been moving at a snail pace. Tired of waiting for help to arrive, Baburam decided to rebuild his own house with his bare hands. His shelter is made up of metal sheets, which he put together on this small farmland just a few kilometers from his collapsed house.
अब तरमा मात्र कति बस्ने अब यो पनि इटा जम्मा गर्ने टुक्रा टाक्राले भएर बनाएर माटोले भएर बनाएर बसौँ गरेको छैन मलाई त यो टिन पनि पाएको छैन पाल पनि पछि पाल दुईटा दिएको थियो सानो सानो त्यही पालमा अहिले पनि पाल छ अब भत्काउनु त आफै बनाउनु भत्काउँछु अनि बनाउनुलाई चाहिँ अब अरू मान्छे चाहिन्छ लाग्छ तपाईँको यो सानो घर बनाउने करिब करिब 6-7 लाख लागिहाल्छ माटोले मात्रै बनाए पनि अब सामान किन्नु पर्यो भने त धेरै लाग्छ तपाईको सामान केही किन्नु सक्दैन अब यी भएको टुक्रा टाक्रा इटा जम्मा गर्यो जति हुन्छ त्यति बनाइयो.
Baburam's only son lost his job after the earthquake. The father of two also has to juggle between the need to keep a roof over his head and providing food on the table for his family. The 22,000 rupees or $200 that he received from the government, together with his own meager income of $3 a day as a laborer, is barely enough to help the family cope with their predicament.
त्यसैबाट खान पाउँथ्यो अब अहिले त काम पनि जान पाएन घरमा काम गरौँ कि म त जाउँ त्यस्तो भइरहेको छ अहिले त एकदम दुःख छ अब अहिले नबनायो भने भोलिपर्सि वर्ष लाग्छ बनाउन सक्दैन माटो पसाउन सक्दैन पानी पर्यो भने त झन् हिलो हुन्छ कामै गर्न सक्दैन अहिले यति माटो फाल्ने भोलिपर्सि यति फाल्ने हुन्छ अब कामबाट पैसा जुटाउने सम्झिँदै मैले काम गर्न सक्ने म फेरि कम्मर दुख्ने राम्रोसँग हिँड्न सक्दैन रातभरि निद्रा लाग्दैन दुःख भोलि के खाने के खुवाउने नानीहरूलाई कसैको मिठो मिठो खान्छ कसैको मासु मार्नु त बच्चाहरूले देख्यो भने बा मासु लिएर आउनु भन्छ आफ्नो पैसा काम.
April would have been a peak season for mountain climbing. Usually the busiest period for mountain guides like 30-year-old Tenzing Sherpa. But it's no longer the same today after the earthquake forced an avalanche, crushing to death 18 climbers at the base camp on Mount Everest last year. It was the worst disaster that the country has ever had on the world's highest mountain.
The earthquake happened during the midday. So during the middays, we don't climb because the climbing starts early in the morning. So a lot of people were at base camp, so they were safe. But unfortunately, there was a big avalanche from side of the base camp that swiped the whole camp, and 18 people got killed.
Until today, many climbers have not returned to Nepal for their climbing expedition. Trips to the Himalayan region have also been cancelled, and Tenzing is worried that his livelihood will be adversely affected the longer the situation continues.
Previous year, in a season, I used to go for 3 to 4 trips. A trip consists of like 15 to 21 days, depending on the climb. And yeah, last year, spring, I had a first trip at Ten Peak, but after the trip, there was an earthquake. So there were no more trips. And following fall season, I didn't go to any of the trips because I was busy myself in a relief program. And also there were very less footfalls of foreign people in Nepal. And even this year, spring, I just went for a short trek. That's the only trip I had right now.
For Nepal, where mountain tourism supports a fragile economy, the loss of revenue has only compounded the sense of crisis that the country is facing. Every year, there are an average of 800,000 tourists visiting Nepal. But by the end of last year, Nepal's tourism industry, one of its main GDP contributors, recorded a 32% drop in visitors, its lowest in 6 years. Its economy has slid into a negative territory, the worst in 33 years, while the people are struggling to put their lives together. Why hasn't the situation improved for the better, despite some $4 billion worth of aid that came pouring in from countries all over the world in the aftermath of the disaster? A year after the earthquake, an estimated 200,000 families are still living in camps and temporary shelters. Victims living in the mountainous hinterlands are often the ones who suffer the most. Sindupalchuk, known for its densely populated mountainous terrains, was the worst affected district. More than 3,000 people lost their lives in the disaster. That's a third of the total number of fatalities. Most of the houses here had collapsed and were damaged beyond repair following the earthquake. The steep and treacherous mountain pass has cut off the village from the rest of the country, and that has made it difficult for help to arrive. But in times like these, youth volunteers like 33-year-old Urgin Lama have made all the difference to the lives of the villagers here. Urgin has been returning to Tanpaldap, a village in Sindupalchuk, 4 times a month to help the villagers rebuild their homes and their community school.
The local volunteers, they did an immense job during the relief phases, and they were the ones actually reaching literally to all the remote places, risking their lives, and just for the sake of making sure that people of this country are safe, and they know that more relief is coming. So I think the youths actually went out there and gave hope to the people.
But there's only so much that volunteers like Urgen can do to help alleviate the sufferings of the quake victims. Ultimately, the main responsibility falls on the government, which has the power and financial muscle to initiate the rebuilding efforts. In June last year, 2 months after the earthquakes, foreign governments and agencies had pledged $4.1 billion to help in the reconstruction efforts. It was more than half the amount that Nepal says it needed for short and medium-term reconstruction, but only 1/20th of the money was spent. Then Prime Minister Sushil Koirala pledged his commitment to full transparency in massive reconstruction efforts. But 4 months later, he resigned over a dispute on the country's new constitution.
Fringe Madhesi parties, which are parties based in the southern plains of Nepal, started agitating, saying that they are not well represented in the new constitution. But since they are strategically placed in the Indo-Nepal border, they were able to blockade essential supplies going to Kathmandu. And in fact, what happened was that the cement was not coming, concrete was not coming, and there was no fuel, so therefore the reconstruction also suffered a lot.
The National Reconstruction Authority, in charge of overseeing reconstruction, took shape only 8 months after the disaster in December, and less than 1,000 families have received the first of 3 cash installments from the government, totaling some $500,000.
$3.6 billion was already pledged. But then the government and the political parties involved realized that this is a lot of money, and we need to have our own person looking after the reconstruction authority, because there is a political meaning in this, in the authority. So therefore it took a lot of time for the coalition partners to agree on a single name to who is going to be the CEO of this authority. So it took a lot of time.
We promulgated the constitution, and then we had a change of government. So that momentum to actually get the money into the country has really slowed down. And so for those of us, like we have been working, say with the US Embassy, with the World Bank and others, the money is there, but the country really has to come up with a plan on how they will disperse it.
There are the conditions of the international partners that we have to make the detailed damage assessment survey of each and every household. So we had to have a time, we should take time for that.
While the authorities quarrel over who among the survivors deserve the financial assistance, many of the quake victims continue to suffer in silence. 40-year-old Jia Ning Tan lost her daughter in the earthquake, which reduced her house to rubble. While trying to overcome the loss and pain, she is confronted with a constant fear. that landslides triggered by monsoon rains might destroy the flimsy, temporary mud house that she built with her own bare hands.
पानी परेको थियो एकदमै पानी परिरहने भूकम्प गइरहने समस्या नै हुन्छ नि अब घरमा बसेर यस्तो छाप्रोमा बसेर त धेरै फरक पर्छ नि समस्या नै थियो भन्नुहुन्थ्यो दिदीहरूले खतरा त अब भइहाल्छ नि अब हेर्नु यस्तो हावाहुरी आउँछ टहरा उडाउँछ भनिरहेछ उडाइरहेछ है कतिपय ठाउँमा अनि हाम्रो पानी आउँछ बर्खामा अब त्यो चरामा अब पानी पस्ला भन्ने डर हुन्छ सर्पको डर हुन्छ अब गर्मी बढी हुन्छ जस्ता तातेर डर त डरै छ नि.
These people have been living in tents for 11 months. So I think at some point that frustration is also going to transfer into anger. And now the rains will start coming, right? So why is it that the people of this country have to live under tents and tin roofs, for 2 monsoons when we have all these resources?
1 year on, many of the disaster victims are still coming to terms with the losses. But it has been made worse by internal squabbles and a government that continues to drag its feet over its reconstruction efforts while leaving the people out in the cold. When will it ever end?
मनै थाम्न नसक्ने अवस्था त जुन आमाले आफ्नो सन्तान गुमाउँछ नि तपाईहरु त अहिले आमा बन्नु भएको छैन हैन आफूले आफ्नो सन्तान गुमाउँदाखेरिको पीडा कस्तो हुँदो रहेछ भन्ने कुरा तपाईहरुलाई परिवेश मात्रै थाहा हुन्छ त्यो भन्दा ठुलो दुःखको क्षण कहिले हुन सक्छ होला र मेरो छोरी कति राम्री थिए पल पल उसकै यादमा मरु जस्तो लाग्छ कहिले त त्यो भन्दा दुःखको क्षण कुन बेला हुन सक्छ होला तपाईहरु आफै सोच्नुस् न सपना त के हुनु अब भएका बाबु नानीलाई राम्रोसँग शिक्षा दीक्षा दिने उनीहरुकै संरक्षण गर्ने अब जसो तसो आफ्नो पनि जीवनको निर्वाह गर्नु पर्दो रहेछ त्यही मात्रै छ.
Majestic pagodas that dominate Kathmandu's Basantapur Durba Square are but a vivid testament to Nepal's strong religious belief. The Bishameswar Kashi temple at the heart of Basantapur Durba Square has been a place of worship and solace for centuries. For the past 4 decades, the temple has been under the care of 58-year-old priest Sham Puyal. The temple has been badly destroyed by the earthquake and has remained idle for a year now. But Sham continues to conduct rituals at the open space outside the ruined temple in the hope that something will be done to bring the temple back to its former grandeur.
मन्दिरलाई क्षति पुगेछ अनि एउटा उता एउटा निलबारेको चाहिँ छानै भत्केको छ अनि यतापटि यो महाविष्णुलाई पनि अलि धक्का परेको छ अनि यो काशीको मन्दिरको पनि पुरा चाहिँ हल्लिरहेको छ अब भित्र चाहिँ अलि बिग्रेको छ अब गर्ने भन्ने चाहिँ कुरो भइरहेछ के अरे अब कतै सुरु गर्ने भन्ने स्थितिमा भइरहेको छ भन्छन् अरु बन्नु पर्छ र बन्छ पनि अब केही मात्रामा त अलि अप्ठ्यारोपनहरू भइरहेको छ जस्तो अब ओहोरदोहोर गर्नेमा बाटोमा अब यस्तो चाहिँ नि अलिकति जान ओर्नेमा अलिकति समस्या छ अब यो बिस्तारै निर्माण भएपछि यो समस्या सल्भ होला भन्ने आशा गरिरहेको छु अब डराएर पनि त पूजा गर्न छोड्नु भएन हेरी अब अहिले जति हामीले डर मान्नुपर्ने त्यति आवश्यक छैन सुचारू रूपमा अब कति जान सकिन्छ त्यति सम्भव भएसम्म हामीले गरिरहेको छौँ.
55-year-old Anil Chitraka is one of the coordinators of a conservation program to help rebuild the ancient Basantapur Royal Palace. The earthquake destroyed 98% of its structures. With the help of the community and volunteers, its restoration process has now continued in earnest. But it's not without challenges.
For these monuments that we are in, so the target is basically to recover all of it in the next 5 years. right? And it is going to take 5 years. I'm happy with the process in the sense that, we will recover all these things. So there's no doubt that we will recover all of it. It's the pace at which we are recovering it, that is frustrating, because the artists are there, the documentation more or less is there, because, it's all documented, the pictures, the things, it's all there. The money has been placed. So how come the work is slow is the only issue.
But for many of the quake victims, life has been a constant struggle. The 2015 earthquake has tested the true mettle of the Nepalese people. When help is slow in coming, many have found strength within themselves to cope with the catastrophe, rebuild their lives from the remains in order to regain a semblance of normality. They've displayed their true resilience to overcome setbacks in the face of extreme difficulties.
बनाउनै 5-7 वर्ष पछाडि पक्की घर बनाउने सोचाइ छ। बाँच्यो भने पक्की घर बनाउने सोच छ। भोग्न त अब मान्छेको जीवनमा समस्या भनेको कुरा आइपर्छ हैन, जस्तो परे नि भोग्नै पर्दो रहेछ। खाना लाउनको त समस्या हैन, मलाई त त्यही नानीको मात्रै चिन्ता लाग्छ।
The whole issue of impermanence is something that we really have to internalize, because we can do this, as long as we live, and we have to, basically take it to heart, because we know that in the long run, we will all be dead. So this impermanence in some development language is often referred to as fatalism, that people are fatalistic. But this is not fatalism, this is the reality of life. And so even in the time of the Buddha, he had 3 sightings. So the first, he saw a diseased person, then he saw a decaying person, and then he saw a dead person. So disease, decay, and death are the most natural things in our life. And that's how he started his quest, for seeking enlightenment.
Nepal, which rests on a major fault line dividing the Indian and Eurasian tectonic plates, remains a traumatized nation following the devastating April 2015 earthquake that rocked the country to the core. Scientists have not ruled out the possibility of another major tremor, which could hit the country within years or decades rather than centuries. But 1 year on, Nepal is still struggling to get back on its feet. It's hard to imagine what will happen if nature unleashes its fury yet again on this poor, landlocked nation, which has fallen to its knees, counting its losses.